Rachel, and today we're talking about Sweet Inferno by Elliot Rose, which is a fantasy book about a fire witch and a werewolf shifter. I'm going to preface this by saying that I thought I was going to like this because my friend, who I love and adore, Natalie from Weirdo Book Club, read it and said that she liked it. So the thing about Natalie is that Natalie and I have different tastes when it comes to fantasy books because I like high fantasy and Natalie typically doesn't. And she read Sweet Inferno during the same time that she was reading Haunting Adeline. And that, I think, and she thinks, colored her experience in a way that is not how my experience was. I still trust her recommendations, just not during the time period in which she read Haunting Adeline. This book is about a werewolf doing espionage and the fire witch that he meets, and immediately the heat is on. As in, I'm not joking, chapter 2, the heat is on. And also, get it, heat is on because she's a fire witch. It's a pun. She's doing fire, which is hot. You get it. You know what else is hot? Me, temperature-wise. Because it's Florida in the summer. And the only reason that I'm not actually sweating my literal tits off is because I wear parade bras. I've been wearing parade for almost 2 years now. And unlike the way that certain fantasy sex scenes are written, I am never uncomfortable in parade bras. Parade is an inclusive, female-owned brand that makes sustainable and affordable bras, underwear, and bralettes in a variety of sizes, including up to 5X. I'm even wearing one right now. I can't because it's not low cut. It's black, just run the footage. I stopped wearing underwear having bras in the end stages of my pregnancy, and then when I was breastfeeding, I was like, there's absolutely no point in me ever wearing an underwire right now. Why would I do that to myself? And then I just said, why would I ever do that to myself again? And never went back. I bought Parade with my own money in summer of 2022, long before sponsorships, and thus began my love affair with the most comfortable bras that I've ever experienced. The mesh is like butter soft, it's like silky mesh, but since it's mesh, it's also breathable, so again, not sweating my literal tits off, which is for me the priority. And the elastic on these bras has lasted, whereas other certain bras that are very popular, the elastic is coming out. Like you see the little threads on the band, and I dry all of my bras in the dryer. I don't have time to hang dry my clothes, and I've never had a problem putting my Parade bras in the dryer. Now I have all kinds of Parade bras and underwear, and I love all of them. All of the bralettes that I have are underwire free, and the elastic is super strong, so I've been nothing but happy with all of my Parade bras. Parade has products for all bodies, and I love that they are inclusive in their marketing and in their creation of product. You can see on their website there are bodies that actually look like mine, and all kinds of bodies for every body shape. Wearing the underwear and bralettes so you can feel confident about your purchase.
Parade is currently hosting their biggest sale of the year, their summer sale, so now is the perfect time to stock up, and my audience gets 50% off by clicking the link below and using code READS50 at checkout.
And there's no minimum purchase to use the code, but I do have to tell you that these styles sell out pretty quickly, so make sure you go click that link below and grab the most comfortable bra that I have ever worn, certainly, for yourself, so that you're not sweating your tits off this summer. And thank you to Parade for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so Sweet Inferno, I feel like I say this so often. This had good ideas, unique ideas. I actually quite liked like little nuggets of ideas, but this book is so short that it didn't do anything with them, which is different than a recent problem that I had with like a 550 page book that had good ideas and had plenty of time to do them and then just didn't. In a novella, it's really hard to nail that pacing because you are working under pressure, you are working in a time constraint. And unfortunately in this novella, we took a lot of time. We did 3 sex scenes in a novella, but we didn't build any world in a way that made me understand like the lore of the werewolves. I do not understand the politics here. So this is the first in a series, but that it depends on who you ask. So like Goodreads lists it as 0.5, which means it's like a prequel novella, but it's not because in the synopsis it says the first in a series, and at the end of the book it says it's the first in a series, so it's like the intro to this story, this series, but it's a novella and we didn't do much work, so I'm very confused. Let me give you the synopsis. Highly trained, deadly, and 300 years old. Oh my god, Rhysand. I'm just kidding. His name is Fern with an H. Fern is a shifter wolf out to complete his reconnaissance mission. Elite spy, warrior, rational. Okay. He has been watching her for weeks. Oh my god, this is Haunting Adeline. Natalie, what were you talking about? Determined to extract information about the dark witches she is loyal to. But when the moment to get close enough occurs, he breaks his code, throwing out the rules to agree to her bargain. Comfortable alone, quietly devoted, and grateful to the masters who sheltered her from an orphan's destitution, Idalia hides her true stuff. What? Stuff? Why did I say stuff? What happened in my mouth? Her true self. Fire witch, telepath, dutiful. Alone in this world, she has kept her secret her whole life, staying safe safe and unassuming, completing her role in the castle of the House of El Harian without question. But when the claws that threatened her neck one night also threatened to rip down the walls around her heart, she strikes a bargain. The only problem is she just lied. Before he discovers the truth, she better hope her heart doesn't betray her. He's her thief, she's his little dragon. Not literal. Just want to make that clear. Book 1, parentheses, a novella in the Nocturnal Heart series. For all tropes, tags, and content warnings, please check the author's website. So I did check the author's website for you. It says, content notes, Sweet Inferno is a paranormal romance novella that contains dark elements. So I would recommend that we don't just say dark elements. If you're going to do content warnings, trigger warnings, try to be as specific as possible, because dark elements is way too broad. I have no idea what's specifically meant by that. Blood, that's specific. Plenty of spice. And then it says explicit sex. So I would just take out plenty of spice. This is not a trigger warning. Plenty of spice is not a trigger warning. Explicit sex is a trigger warning because some people can be triggered by explicit sex scenes. That's good. Try to remain as neutral as possible and just give the facts when you are giving your trigger warnings. Trigger warnings are definitely not a place to make cute and quirky little jokes about all the violence that your main characters do. Also, hockey is not a trigger. Please don't put that in your trigger warnings. Author of the Pucking Wrong Number. Discussions about sexual assault, parentheses, alluded to, non-graphic. So that's very specific, which is great. That's exactly what you want to do. And torture, parentheses, occurs off page. Great. So you're specifically saying torture, which sure is broad, but I don't think you need to be more specific about torture in particular, especially because you're not asking okay, is sexual assault also in this? We've already explained sexual assault is in this. Torture occurs off page, so you're saying what the context is without, getting more specific. So that sentence got away from me. The point is, I think that torture is good enough without getting more specific. So is saying sexual assault, as long as you are saying, if you want to get more specific, I would say the context around it. So alluded to, non-graphic is great. Torture occurs off page, I think is really helpful. So I like fantasy novellas again, but you really have to get this shit down to a science, because you are working to do a lot in very small amount of pages, and 3 sex scenes in one novella is a lot if we are doing fantasy romance, because I like romance and I like fantasy, but if we are doing 3 sex scenes and we have put those in and use that as a substitute for world building, doing fantasy, and also this is immediate insta love, it almost doesn't even feel like a fantasy romance. It just sort of feels like smut, which is fine. It's just, it feels a little bit mismarketed. But again, you are working in a small amount of pages. I don't really see a reason why this couldn't have been longer, and then I would have felt we would have balanced between the smut, the fantasy elements, and the romance elements. However, we did not do that. So this is only 100 some odd pages. We really barely did anything. And because we weren't really building anything, I was pretty bored the whole time. And when I say we didn't build anything, I mean we didn't build characters, we didn't build backstories, we didn't build the fantasy world. We just introduced cardboard cutout of vampire, nope, a werewolf shifter. There are vampires, but they don't get names until the end. Very odd choice. Werewolf shifter, witch cutout, make them kiss. Smooch, smooch, wow, really good at my job today. So an example of a novella that I think knocked it out of the park with building its fantasy elements, it is Portal Fantasy though, but also its characters, was A Spindle Splintered by, did Alex Harrow write this? This was great. It almost felt like you got a novel's worth in such a short amount of pages. Alex Harrow really knocked it out of the park. This one, no, not so much. Okay, let's do this. If anybody can tell me how to fix the exporting of my notes from my Kindle app so that it looks like it did literally on Saturday and just says highlight and then the quote instead of all of this fucking HTML, I would love that, because I need to go back to how I was on Saturday, because now I can't export my notes normally and I cannot make videos without exporting my notes. Okay? Help me please. Okay, the dedication says, for all the witchy women who have fire dancing in their veins. Chapter 1. The world had forgotten its magic, abandoned it to time, turned away from the old ways. What are the old ways? I do not know. It does not get explained. And it says that Adalia's grandmother had often wrapped her hand in her own and it reminded her to always be wary, to safeguard her secrets and her heart. There are those who would take your power and turn it into blackness, my little Draga. That was long ago. A shadow of a memory of a little girl once surrounded by the love of her grandmother. All of this is moot, completely irrelevant to the story. We hear about the grandma in passing maybe 2 times. I don't know what her name was. I don't know if she was referring to her power being taken by the people that she actually works for, which she later finds out. about, but then it seems like she always knew that. I don't know. I'm very confused. So her name is Adalia, but she goes by Leah, and she is a fire witch, but she's also telepathic. She had been a telepath her whole life, a rare thing indeed, but thanks to the warnings from her grandmother, she had never allowed the others here in the house of Elharion to know of her unique gift. So it's weird because when she is confronted by this werewolf and told like, the people you work for are bad, she's like, no, they're not. They're so great to me. But it even says here that her grandma had warned her. Like, that's how we start this story, is her grandma kept warning her about people that would exploit her magic. Warnings from her grandmother. She had never allowed the others here in the house of Elharion to know about her unique gift. If your grandma warned you, why is it such a shock later when this man shows up and is like, the people you work for are bad? It was not unusual to wield magic. In fact, everyone had the ability lying dormant within them. Most regular people and non-magical folk had forgotten over time or had intentionally shunned their gifts, closing their minds off to their true potential. Why? I don't know. Leah came from a long lineage of practicing witches, including her grandmother, who had raised her in the ways after the disappearance of her parents presumed dead. This never comes up again. The orphanage attached to the house of Elharion had taken her in as a young girl. Upon turning 18, she had been assessed and transferred into the castle to begin service to the powerful Elharion dynasty, who could be anything but grateful for a life being provided for, given employment, food, shelter, and protection. And I thought, okay, so this is gonna be in conflict with what her grandma said about, you know, don't tell anybody about your telepathy. No. Her gift of telepathy might have just given her a slightly unfair advantage. And I'm like, okay, but what about it being kind of, you know, a secret? Why is it a secret? From whom? Why? Like, why do you think that is? Okay. Instead, she just talks about how helpful it is for her. It was helpful to know the thoughts of another person and simply position herself in the right places at the right times. Not that she would ever tell. That danger lurked ominously, wondering what might befall her if anyone found out. So the whole thing about this is that she has telepathy, but it only comes up randomly, and I feel like we only wrote it in here so that we could hear the bad guy talk about how he wants to sexually assault her, and then hear the werewolf talk about how he wants to be her mate. I just find it weird that she never heard anything about this seal that the werewolf guy is looking for. You live here, you've been living here your whole life, and it has never come up before in somebody else's brain that this very important magical seal that these people, these bad guys who you work for, are using has never come up in anybody's brain. Because when it gets mentioned, she's like, the what? You're telepathic. You've never heard even a rumbling? Not a whisper? So she's running around the castle and she's like lighting the fires and stuff. She's a fire witch, which I thought was going to be more cozy than it was, but unfortunately no. Where are my cozy fire witches? She twisted in the flare of the firelight, watching her rounded curves become highlighted and accentuated, her full breasts pressed against the join of her wrap, while diminutive in height, her ample figure made up for what she didn't possess in stature, a strength from her ancestors that those scrawny little kitchen maids didn't have. Why did we have to put down other women in order to prop up our main character? I do not know. She could pass for around her mid-20s, however, it was the choice of a witch as to how they desired to appear in age. Witches age slowly, and she is in her 32nd year. So cool, we have a main character who, you know, finally is not like a just off the cusp of, you know, turning, like she just turned 18. Finally, I like it. We have a curvy main character. Great. We did not have to put down other women to get there, and we definitely did not need to take more time to describe her looking at how curvy she is instead of building our world and answering basic questions. And it talks about how she, you know, this isn't like purity culture bullshit, which is nice. Leah had experienced enough fleeting moments with partners in bed in her short life to know that what she did and didn't want in a companion between her thighs and in her heart. Great. We like to see it. And then it mentions that in this world there are vampires and shifters along with witches, and they are likely to find mates, but that's hard for somebody like her to do, especially for witches such as she, who were indebted to servitude within the house of Elharion. So I don't really understand how it never came up at least once, like, all right, you're indebted in servitude for growing up here. How long until you get out? Do you resent this at all? Doesn't come up. Instead, she's just like, die hard for the Elharions, who we never see, by the way. So it says that fire magic takes it out of her. I guess telepathy doesn't, just the fire magic. It makes her really tired. She's going back to her room, and suddenly a powerful hand from the darkness clamped around her mouth. Her eyes flew open, a predator lying in wait, ready to pounce. Not one single move or your throat will be ripped out. A low growl rumbled against her ear. Sharp claws laced with the potential for death pressed into her wrist. Menacing intent accentuated by the adrenaline course through her course. Oh my god, forget it. Now be a good little girl and we won't have to tear out that pretty throat of yours. This was an empty threat. I don't think this man does tear out throats. He's like, I've watched you all night. It's clear you know every damn corner of this castle. You're going to take me to the seal of Elharion. Her response, the what? What do you mean the what? You're telepathic. You said it was helpful to know the thoughts of another and simply position herself in the right places at the right times. Not that she would ever tell blah blah blah. The danger lurked ominously, wondering what might befall her if anyone found out. Wouldn't it make sense that one of the secrets that you might find out that you don't want other people to know that you know about is the seal? Why did we do it this way? I don't understand. She can't read his thoughts, which has never happened to her. Something or someone was blocking her telepathy. Shit. A rugged man with sun-kissed skin and shoulder-length dark hair. It's very specific. I'm picturing at least 50,000 different people. Dark hair lightened to caramel at the ends from obvious time spent out in the elements. Cheekbones gave his face an elegance that contrasted against the wildness that clung to him. I know nothing of this seal you speak of. I am merely a servant to the great house. Ha! A great house! Such arrogance! You will take me to the seal. I cannot possibly do so if I know nothing of that which you are seeking. For a rotten thief, you really should have planned your crimes more carefully. And this is when I started to notice that thief is italicized. Take me to the seal and then I'll be gone from here at once. The scent of earth and wood smoke flooded her senses. Only now she recognized the sandalwood notes. Grandmother used to burn sandalwood incense. How was he preventing her from accessing his thoughts? I was so confused at this point. I'm like, why did we randomly throw the grandma burning incense in here because it never comes up again? And also, why didn't we break the paragraph? What does that have to do with him preventing her from using her telepathy? Help me! She says, fine, I'll give you information on the seal, but I have a proposal, a negotiation to put to you. The lies tumbled from her lips. Her life depended on this plan. And then it switches to Fern's POV. We are in chapter 2. A sex scene is coming between these two people. They just met. I'm not joking. Fern waited impatiently for the diminutive woman standing before him to hand over the information he so desperately needed. So because we just referred to her as diminutive in the previous scene like a few lines ago, I would recommend, I know that I'm not technically beta reading this, but like if I was, this is what I would say. I would recommend giving her a different descriptor there, because let's not describe her the same way in two different people's POVs. His mission was dangerous and potentially deadly. Capture within the walls of the castle would mean torture and execution. The House of Elharian were power-hungry dark witches. Oh, they are witches. Huh. Corrupted by an obsessive need for power. Infiltrate the castle, retrieve the seal of Elharian, gather intel on their latest movements to take back with him. Being a spy in the elite guard was laced with danger that was nothing new after 300 years. As a shifter, Fern had the power, heightened senses, and intellect of his wolf form even while in his human form. This is like all of the building of werewolf lore and spy lore that we get. I don't know who he works for, even having finished the book. I don't know if they are good, what their intentions are. Are they aligned with the humans? Are they aligned with the vampires? I have no idea. I have no idea who the people he works for are. I don't know what his rank is. I don't know if they're like a communal living werewolf society or if he like works for a king. I have no fucking clue. The tattoos across his arms and body marked his journey of initiation. They also granted him full access to his powers, a connection to Source, capital S, unlocked with every stroke of the sharp blade and drip of ink. So this is one of several things that comes up that never gets explained. I don't know what Source, capital S is. Something that people tend to say is like, oh, spirits with a capital S. I don't know what the spirits are. This is just throwing words in here and hoping that like you have a touchstone from a different fantasy book to, fall back onto for your understanding, instead of making an understanding known within your book and like contextualizing that to the particulars of your book. The seal you seek is not easily found, she said. Either you gravely misjudge who you intend to steal from, or you truly are as brutishly simple-minded as you appear. Her scorn interrupted his thoughts. The seal is housed within my master's guarded chambers, the witch continued. There is a fortress deep within these walls protecting it, so unless you have an army waiting outside, you won't be leaving here tonight with the seal. So that begs the question, why isn't there an army there to get the seal? Have they been at war before? Why did they only send one spy? You had better watch your tongue, lest it becomes ripped from your mouth, Fern said. Remember his name is Fern with an H? My proposal to you is this, thief. I'll get you the damn seal from my master's guarded chambers. The guards allow me in there during the day as part of my duties. If you let me keep my life, I shall meet you tomorrow night to deliver the seal. And why should I trust you? She says, I have powerful magic, That's not an answer as to why you should trust you. Help me. Somehow she just knows that he's a werewolf, and she says, I know of other supernaturals such as vampires and fey creatures. Us witches outnumber other supernatural beings, and most people in this world don't even realize they have some kind of dormant magical power waiting to be awakened within them. And he says, and do you know why that is? Do you know why there are so many who are lost and unaware? And this is about, her having been working for the bad guys. And I'm just like, okay, well, if there are other vampires and fey creatures, it doesn't say specifically what, and there's werewolves, then like, why haven't the werewolves banded together against the Elharians? And he's like, you're standing in the very grounds that have a vested interest in it staying that way. You are caught in their twisted trap just as all those who who live their lives blissfully unaware of their power. I bet you haven't tapped the mere surface of your potential, little girl. I bet using your gift leaves you weakened and exhausted, which is true. The House of Elharian wield their power by draining the life force of all those in servitude to their supposed legacy. You, the other servants, the witches surrounding this castle for miles where they are so revered, all supporting this very place with their blood as though it were gold. And she's like, my masters have been nothing but kind. They saved me from a life of ruin. I owe them everything. Then why did your grandma tell you not to tell them about your telepathy? You're so blinded by their twisting, cruel world. One day you'll see the truth. If only you knew what you were capable of. Sadly, I bet you'll never know, choosing to stay trapped inside your pathetic cage. I'm expected to trust in the word of a dirty common thief, she spat. You have only the word of a thief, yet you expect me to trust in you, a little girl who works for the darkest hearts of all. This is a little cheesy. These castle walls are running with blood of innocence, and she's like, it seems we're at an impasse. Either you get it over with or kill me now, or you agree to my bargain. And how do I know you won't simply kill me after I deliver the seal and you get what you want? What guarantee do I have as I risk my safety my entire life simply to please your demands? She says, fair question, okay? What do you think the answer is? I'll give you a second. Is it sex? Did you guess sex? Because you're correct, but I'm guessing that you didn't guess that, because that would be weird, right? How is that a guarantee? How is that a guarantee? It's not. It's just like, how do I get to the sex scene? Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Whew. So it's a guarantee you're after. The swell of her breast rising and falling as though running. Another tell, a new scent washed through his awareness. Fern's wolf howled inside. Arousal. Ow, ow! You can't possibly expect me to go through with this without something in return. Surely even for a dirty thief. Why are we italicizing thief? You can get it through your thick skull that this is a negotiation. His body stiffened, a predator ready to strike. Or are you truly as dim-witted as it seems? He lunged forward and starts kissing her. Okay. With a pause, he drew back, his instinct barely contained. The wolf inside him urged to pounce on his beautiful prey. And it says her almond-shaped pools enveloped him, which is a weird thing to say about eyeballs. Clothes are coming off. He felt her nipple harden beneath his caress. No other sensation compared to how her skin radiated a tingling heat. And here it starts to do this dialogue from her, which I think is super cringy. It reminds me of reading Neon Gods and listening to her go, oh, Hades, please. And I'm like, I can't stand it. Now, I'm super picky about sex scenes. Somebody was like, is there any that you don't cringe over? Yes. Sometimes they're just few and far in between. One that I definitely don't think were cringy at all was any of the sex scenes in Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I think those were well done. Oh yes, please, that feels so good. Don't stop. Let me hear what your pleasure is, my little dragon. He circled her nipple with his tongue. It's too much, but not enough. Oh my god, it's just so cringy. Breasts pushed together in a vision of womanly power. Oh, no, I don't like any of this. Tomorrow night, you will deliver the seal to me. By the way, he's going down on her. A flick of his tongue across the tight bud, a gasp of pleasure. Ooh, she says. Midnight, the walled garden. You will meet me at the gazebo. Another devilish flick of his tongue as he pressed his hand at her other nipple. Nod if you understand. Yes, I mean, I will. I mean, oh my god, it's just so cringy. Like, I just don't understand why we had to write it like this. She opened her eyes to reveal flames of lust dancing in their almond-shaped pools. Let's not use that twice. Let's actually not use it at all. Look at you, little dragon. You're dripping, so fucking wet and beautiful. His hand stroked over her core, a slide of his thumb finding that tight nub of her clitoris. At least we're using the word clitoris. Credit where credit is due. Oh, spirits. That feels so good. Now, again, I don't know what spirits means. If her lips tasted like molten honey, this was like tasting the nectar of the fire god. Vaginas don't taste like that. I'm sorry. They just don't. Let's not. Come for me, little dragon. He breathed against her pussy, her back arched. One hand gripped his head, the other stretching out behind her. Now, here's my thing. If he is between, he's here, how can he see her hand stretch out behind her? If he's concentrating, okay, he's busy at the moment. How can he see that? I don't think, I'm trying to visualize, and I'm like, if I'm like, you know, face deep, okay, how? So you have your bargain with a thief until tomorrow night, little dragon. So you eating her out is supposed to be the proof that you won't just kill her when you get the seal from her? Okay. Chapter 3, did you forget we're still still in the beginning, fuck, she needed to get a grip on herself. Yes, absolutely. 100%. A potentially, maybe, almost certainly deadly thief was expecting her to find some unknown magical seal and hand it over to him this coming night. And then it repeats her proposal to him. I'm like, wait, we're only in chapter 3. I remember the proposal. You don't need to retell it to me. I'm good. I've got it. My reading attention is on point, thank you. A complete stranger had managed to make her blood boil while simultaneously giving her the greatest orgasm of her short life. It was now or never to find out if the supposed seal of Elharion existed, and she knew exactly who to ask. If she rushed through her duties this afternoon, she could squeeze in just enough time to make it to the stables. Again, I just want to point out that the seal of Elharion is really fucking important, so I just find it impossible that she's never heard anybody, like telepathically, say something about it. There weren't exactly any friendships formed between the castle servants. All had been in servitude their entire lives. Only those who died or were dismissed had ever moved on. A life sentence. You're calling it a life sentence. So there's no way out. You have a life sentence and you don't think of this as a prison?
This house is a fucking prison on planet bullshit! In the galaxy of this sucks camel dicks!
You're not mad about this? You think it's fine? You're basically a prisoner? You're like for life? You are an indentured servant for life. And you don't ever think, if only I could get out, or feel like a little bit annoyed, like, yeah, sure, they took care of me until I turned 18, but like, I feel like I could do something else with my life. What else would you do with your life if you could get out? I'm very confused. The servants knew that the stable master had been the longest serving of all, the only one still alive that was. The only one still alive that was the longest serving of all. Is that what that second sentence is completely unnecessary. You could have written it like, the stable master was the oldest living servant is what we're getting at. That would have made more sense. So she goes and sees this old lady who is the longest indentured servant in existence at the Elharion castle. Are the masters leaving the castle today? Leah asked, and it says that her interest was suddenly piqued, but it writes it P-E-A-K-E-D. I think the word is P-I-Q-U. It means to like, you know, get somebody's interest in something. But as far as I know, piqued as like P-A-A-K-E-D is not, piqued your interest is not used like that. The House of Elharion were notoriously private and rarely traveled on short notice. I'm surprised they can travel anywhere. If it's at least semi-known outside of this castle that they are using people for their power, I don't really know where would they travel to? Okay. They'll be making their way to some other grand castle somewhere, no doubt. So are they like do they have like other castles of their own, or are they traveling to meet a different group, and if so, which? See, I have so many basic questions. What do you know of the seal of Elharion? The stable master flinched on hearing the words. Her raised arm froze in place mid-strike. White lines formed across her knuckles. She knows of the seal. The time has arrived. Okay, so if I heard in my head, the time has arrived, I would think the time of what? What does this have to do with the thief? And I'd start looking for anything. I'd check the library. I would ask, what do you mean by the time has arrived? I would go out of my way because this sounds like important shit. The old lady says, go now. I never heard you say those words. This woman does not have a name until the end of the book because most people do not have names in this book. In fact, I think that the only people who had names in this book are our two main characters and the bad guy who isn't even like the Elharion. He's just like the head of their guard or some shit. And his name is Rygor. I don't think anybody else has a name. We didn't even give any characters any names. Go, never mention to no one. Never mention that to no one else if you value your head. And in her head it says, stars save us and protect that stupid girl from harm. The stable master's thoughts rang through Leah's head as clearly as if they were her own. I already know how telepathy works. We don't really need to explain it. Theirs wasn't exactly a close relationship, but she hadn't anticipated such a visceral reaction. Yes, why do you think a visceral reaction is happening, and why do you think that in her head she said the time has come? Maybe ask yourself basic questions, put together some context clues, and sort that puzzle out. What was she so deathly afraid of? Why don't we go looking for some answers? Maybe check a library, maybe ask somebody else. In chapter 4, she runs into said bad guy, Rygor, captain of the castle guards, a powerful male witch and part of the elite chosen to be in service to the masters. How many elite? I don't know. What's their jobs? I don't know. In his head, he's like, no escape from me here, Leah. His pale, gaunt face leered at her from the top of the stairs. Why do we always make gross men either pale and gaunt or like that? Sometimes like people who we consider like, you know, what society tells us are attractive are actually just not not nice too. Just feel like it's like shorthand for, oh look, the bad guy's here. Better type the words pale and gaunt, or make him like fat and sweaty. Like we always do the same two kind of men and they are always a sexual predator. Or in Sarah J Maas's case, if the hot guy is a sexual predator, then it's Rhysand and it's fine. But if a gross, nasty person is a sexual predator, it's a literal monster or another character, and they're uglier than Rhysand. Let me choke your pretty neck and have you begging for mercy on your knees. Such a pretty throat to collar, I'd like to see it bruised beneath my fingers. His black smoke like tendrils reached towards her, snaking around her stomach and breast, reaching higher towards her throat, threatening to close. Where are you rushing off to, Idalia? Time to take what is owed to me. She was trapped in a narrow staircase with a madman. And then he's needed, his other guards say, so he doesn't get to sexually assault her, which, you know, thank God. You will come to me, my dear. I know you will feel drawn to my power, and when you do, I will be waiting with eager anticipation. With that, he vanished. You know, assumedly a cloak was involved. I hate that he is shadow magic. We only have one shadow magic person, and it's the, you know, sexually assault-y guy. She's still thinking about having sex with the random stranger who she still doesn't know the name of, which honestly, in a way, good for her, but not good for me because I just want some plot and some world building and some character building. The thief was correct that such a seal did exist, and if it existed within the castle walls, it was clearly of the utmost secrecy and importance. You don't say. Maybe that's why you don't know anything about it and had to go ask people. It must hold untold value if he had been willing to overlook countless antiques and artifacts that could have easily fetched a pretty penny. This wasn't about thievery for riches. No, it related to something much more, something much darker. I cannot believe it took you this long to figure that out. I cannot believe that. She was no closer to obtaining any clues that might help her. Clarity hit her with a jolt. It couldn't possibly be that simple. Could it? The thief, italicized, obviously didn't know what he was looking for. He knew of its name, but had asked her to locate it for him last night. He didn't know where it lay within the castle, nor did he have the words to describe it. The artifact he sought was a complete mystery to him, just as it was to her. You don't say. You don't say. Bitch, you didn't think to ask about this last night? You didn't think to ask, hey, what does it look like? Do you know possibly a vague description? What if she simply gave him some useless antique tonight and lied to protect herself? Or what if he is a smart thief and is testing you and assumes that you already know it because you did technically say to him, yes, the seal, it is in my master's quarters, I will get it. And so if you bring the fake thing, he's just gonna kill you. Oh my God. A blast of commotion hit her like a shockwave when a crush of servants burst into the kitchen. A crush? Is that a thing that people use to describe a bunch of people? I think shockwave might be an anachronism though. I don't know for sure. Sometimes you guys correct me, which keep doing that because it's helpful. With everyone distracted by the commotion outside, this was her chance to act swiftly. She entered the library out of breath and darted straight from the mantelpiece above the fireplace. Every night for 15 years she had seen it, unassuming, hidden among the other antiques. A small golden dagger in its ornamental sheath, the House Valharian insignia forged into the blade. Leah had no idea what this powerful seal was supposed to look like, but neither did her thief. And since when had she begun thinking of him as her thief? That's a good question. I have another question. Why are we italicizing thief? I realize that I keep asking. You know what this is reminding me of? You know when you play Zelda, Link's Awakening, and you steal from that little guy with the shop, and he gets really mad at you, and the next time you go in the shop, he electrocutes you until you're dead? And then everybody after this knows that you stole, and so they stop calling you Link and they start calling you Thief. And it's italicized. Do you know what I'm talking about? If not, I hopefully will have it on the screen right now if future Rachel is doing her job editing. So this is reminding me of that. Why are we italicizing Thief? Stop it. In his POV, it says, her soft moans and breathless gasps etched into his memory. If he wasn't sworn to dismantle her dark witch masters and all of her kind, he might have been impressed by her natural gift for moving through the night. Wait, all of her kind? All of her kind? You mean all witches? Are you saying you're gonna destroy all witches or just the ones she works for? I'm genuinely confused. He had a job to do. That was the reason he came here tonight. Or was it? I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. I was not given enough information. But he's like in a post-giving head phase, I guess. Her pleasure had radiated heat through him and damn near entirely melted his resolve. Tonight he had to keep his cool, stick to the plan, retrieve the seal, extract himself, and return to his safe lands. What are those lands called? Would love to know. It would be a mistake to come here tonight empty-handed, little girl. And in his head he's thinking, fierce, beautiful, mine. I believe, thief, italicized, our bargain is complete. She spat as a hand thrust beneath her cloak and I should say thrust out from beneath her cloak, and withdrew a short, jewel-encrusted gold scabbard. This was the seal of Elharion? End of chapter. Okay, so here's the thing, is that I just cannot believe that a 300-year-old spy is this inept. And also, you come to find out later at the end that that stable hand that she talked to, who thought in her head the time is now, she's a spy, a shifter spy, and they didn't meet up at any point, and you are not given any explanation as to why. I mean, they could have exchanged information. He could have told her this is what the seal looks like. He could have been testing, you know, this witch, although I don't really understand why he needed to bring her into it whatsoever, when again the stable hand could have probably given the exact same information. Help me understand. Her long dark hair curled and flowed freely beneath her hood, and the calm he had promised himself began to leave his body as her scent wound through the air, replaced by an entirely different sensation, raw heat and desire. We don't have time for this. There are dire circumstances happening, sir. Please. You have no idea how much of a risk I took in stealing this for you, doing your dirty work. Where I come from, our greetings are a touch less acidic, little girl. I feel like, aren't werewolves kind of wouldn't y'all be kind of like aggressive? I feel like that's just not true. Are we done here? You have what you came for. Now, if you please, I plan to keep my life and my trusted place within the castle. Ah, but you cannot be trusted any longer, can you? He says. You betrayed your masters without a second thought, only because you gave me no choice, she says. Well, don't forget that he ate you out for some reason. Certainly, we can't forget about that. I won't. His wolf demanded to be let loose at the sensuality. Such a small motion, sending I don't know, she does like something like, oh, she darts her tongue out to wet her bottom lip, and this like makes him super horny. Almond eyes widen ever so slightly as she swept her gaze across his outstretched form. Tell me, what is to stop your masters torturing every member of the castle staff until they finally wrench the truth for you? What is to stop them punishing every last servant and maid until they find their answer? Turning on all those who serve their twisted agenda. They would never! Her voice cracked with defiance. Then why did your grandma tell you to keep your telepathy a secret? And why do you think that the stable hand who has worked here longer than anybody else, your words, said the time is now and don't tell anybody that you were asking about the seal? Put two and two together. I'm begging you. Oh, but they would. They already have for hundreds of lifetimes before yours. They wouldn't think twice about tearing your mind from you and stripping your magic to shreds while you lay bleeding. No! With a cry, she lunged for the dagger, unsheathed the blade in a fluid motion, and launched herself at him. And then, she's bad at this, so he teaches her how to, you know, go at somebody with a dagger, which is doing the like knife to the throat thing that makes everybody horny in fantasy books. Apparently all her fire had pooled between her legs in the presence of her thief. Oh, this is back in her POV. And he's still teaching her how to use the dagger, and they're just getting like progressively hornier. Heat intensified lower in her sex. Oh, I hate when we call it that. Their tongues entwined and explored one another with increasing passion. She couldn't help but moan against his mouth. And he says, "Are you sure, little dragon?" So at least we're getting consent. That's good. Ah, stars. I've been dreaming of this. What? Now we're using stars. So we were using spirits before. What are the stars, and why is it capitalized, and what is the importance of that? Her fingers shoved at his trousers. His erection sprang forward, breathtaking in size. This was a man who could drive a woman wild with pleasure. Size isn't everything. I mean, my vibrator's like this big. Who could drive her wild with pleasure. And Sheila tries to get on her knees, and he's like, no, the only one of us getting on their knees will be me, little dragon. Which honestly, this is women's rights. She spiraled into the stars, capital letter on stars, as he slipped his thumb between her sex. I need you, little dragon. Oh, I need you. I've been thinking of this. You're so wet for me. Will you have me? Will you open and allow me to please you until dawn? Until dawn? Ambitious. Once again, she found herself nodding in complete trust of this man, her thief, italicized. At least for this moment, that is more than I would give this man. The filthy... Okay. The filthy sounds as he pumped in and out of her wetness filled the night air. You know what? I will actually take this over Sarah J. Maas saying that Rhysand's sounds of orgasms drowned out the sounds of the dead and dying in a war camp. So point in Elliot Rose's favor that at least she didn't do that, and Sarah J. Maas absolutely did, and I will never let it go. Thank you so much. Fall apart for me, let go. A tremble swept along her body as the coil wound tight. Her nails dug into his shoulders. Yes, just there, she gasped. Her walls clamped around his fingers. Oh man, her walls clamped. I grew up on Star Wars, so I just can't help but imagine that her vagina's like this scene from Star Wars.
The walls are
Don't
moving.
just stand there, try and brace it with something.
On the detention level, will ya? Do you copy? Shut down all the current matches on the detention level.
Make that 2 of the best orgasms of her life. Awesome. Thank the stars for witches having... What are the stars? When did this start happening? Thank the stars for witches having the gift of spellcasting to protect themselves during sex. She certainly desired his thick cock, but not on any other lasting consequences right now. So great. I'm okay. I mean, on the one hand, I'm just really glad that we mentioned magical birth control. Like, I'm genuinely glad about that. On the other hand, did we need to add the line where it says, she certainly desired his thick cock, but not the other lasting consequences? Wait, not any other lasting consequences. That implies that, like, his cock is also a lasting consequence. Shouldn't it just be, she certainly desired his thick cock, but not any lasting consequences as a result? Okay. You're mine, little dragon. This will always belong to me. Ooh, just like that, Leah murmured. Will you stay? Stay with me? You know I can't, but my heart will always stay with you in your hands. What the fuck just happened? All y'all did was have sex. Why? Oh my god. And my cock will be right here inside you, filling you every night in your dreams. Aww. Say it. Say you'll always belong to me.
Say it out loud.
Always come for me. Come on my cock, little dragon. Oh my god, this makes me want to pluck out my eyeballs. I'm not going to last much longer. Feels so good. With a deep roar, his muscles tighten. Blah, blah, blah. I need to make sure you return safely. We're in the next chapter, by the way. They're done. Thank God. Don't worry. We're going to end the book with sex, but we're not going to end the book knowing what the fuck is going on. I need to make sure you return safely. Couldn't rest under otherwise. I guess this is where we part ways, thief. I don't even know your name. Oh my god, they still have not exchanged names. Best for you not to, little dragon. But she tells him her name. She says, my name's Leah. His heart felt like it had grown wings. He had been through hell and back over his 300 years, and yet this witch had him in a fluttery mess of emotion. His world wasn't one for having romantic attachments or commitments. While not exactly a rule, it was more of an act of self-preservation. You could be dedicated to a mission for decades if that was how long it took. Missions for whom? I'm begging for a crumb of detail. I just want a little crumb. Rumored among the supernaturals that one spy had been undercover for over 200 years. So this is hinting at the stable master, who is that old lady who's a spy, and you find out that at the end of the book. But again, like, who is she reporting to? Because if it's a rumor, then is she just like not reporting anymore? And like, couldn't they have like planted her and then had him come meet with her, and then what was the point? Crack, a spark of light, dull thud echo through his skull, dark splotches his vision. He gets attacked. Last thought in his head is Leah. When he wakes up, he is in a dungeon, and it says, eyesight or none, Farron had the ability to detect he was not alone. 4, maybe 5 others were in close proximity, but these beings appeared to be wounded. I don't really understand like what that means. The ability to detect he was not alone. Does that mean by scent? Does that mean by like noises? It doesn't say. He could still identify supernatural beings and their weaknesses. How? By scent? By noise? It was exactly what he was trained for. Isolate the target, take advantage of any woundness or injury. Vampire, shifter, witch, vampiress. Fern detected the nature of the other captives in the cells alongside him. Detected them how? Like how? But how? Is it smell? Is it sounds? Is it a feeling? Is it an aura? Give me something. So then Rygor shows up, and he knows Rygor. And I don't know how. The guy who is like, you know, really wanting to sexually assault Leah, of course, is the bad guy. Because that's, you know, the easiest way to make a bad guy is just make him the guy that wants to sexually assault the main woman character. Ah, so the pathetic dog lives. Shall we prepare you for your interrogation, Captain? A guard flanking Rygor stood ready to unlock Fern's cell. Again, we will never know how he knows Rygor. Ready, the vampiress. I have a new protege I want to introduce during our next round of questioning. I think you will find their methods quite illuminating. This felt like every Disney villain monologue I've ever heard. So it says that the vampiress, who's also imprisoned, is wounded. Both vampire and vampiress beings alike were renowned for their supernatural strength, speed, and healing ability. The only thing to weaken them would be exposure to sunlight, fire, or being unable to feed for an extended period of time. All supernatural beings had rapid healing and recovery powers, making them as close to immortal as you can imagine. Those gifts didn't exclude them from suffering, pain, and death. The vampiress is getting hurt, and and somebody else from a different cell says, touch her again and you'll pay for it with your head. Isn't that sweet? The lovelorn mutt speaks his pathetic empty threats. So the vampiress, who's like gravely wounded in this dungeon, is mates with a different werewolf shifter. There's nothing you can do in here to protect your mate, dog. And then somebody else is in there and Rygor says to them, how fares our little traitor then? Not so spiteful without your magic, are we? She must have had her powers stripped from her. Fern was aware of the kind of soul death this would cause for a witch. I'm not really sure what soul death means. The witch would be left trapped in a bleak, endless void. The process was akin to a death sentence. I'm not sure if this means like they're in a coma or they're like sort of aware but not all there. I don't really know. And so he starts to think, wait, did Leah know about this all along? Did she set me up for failure? Had she manipulated him? Was she part of the plan to capture him? If that was true, then why would she have handed you the seal? Why wouldn't she have just delivered Rygor to you? Like, use your brain. She was fierce, yes, but his wolf didn't sense any true darkness within her. I'm curious, why would scum such as you be carrying a blade of the House of Elharion? Perhaps you were just a lonely thief after all? I'll rip that seal from your cold dead hands when we're through here, Fern growled. You believe this is the seal of Elharion? Maniacal laughter poured forth like poison. You actually wrote that he's doing maniacal laughter. He's just such like a mustache twirly villain. For millennia your people have been trying to find the seal. All have failed. All have paid with their life, as you shall too. The great house is fueled by the blood of your kind. I am going to enjoy watching you suffer as you bleed for your new masters. In Leah's POV, in the next chapter, she hears some guards talking. Specifically like the elite guards, members of the elite household advisors, both dressed in signature House of Elharion blood-red capes over their uniform. They will come looking, you know this to be true. We can't be sure of anything. The Elharion dynasty has always kept the seal safe. Leah's hand shot to cover her mouth. Did one of the men really just mention the seal? And I'm like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. So she never heard a whisper about the seal until conveniently after now. Lived here her whole life, 32 years. The seal has been used for dark purposes by her masters for hundreds of years. And yet in her 32 years of life, this is the first time, despite having telepathy, this is the first time that she's ever heard it spoken out loud. Are you serious? Keeping the prisoners here, we are inciting suspicion. But aren't they already all suspicious? Don't they all know that you're using other magical beings to drain them for their magic? So she ends up following them into like this secret area. Well, what do we have here? One brutish castle guard sneered in her face. Out creeping where you shouldn't be, witch. That'll get you a date with our captain to decide your punishment. And of course, this is another man who is just like a shorthand for evil. We make him like think sexual thoughts about her. Rip that dress from her. See how she begs for it. Drag her across the roof. Enough meat to share around nicely. Ew, wait. Was that cannibalism or is that a euphemism for sex? I don't know. You'll unhand me immediately. I am your captain's personal guest. Rygor invited me to visit him this evening. I am only obliging your captain's wishes. I'm sure neither of you wish to be found going against him, do you? So she is brought in front of Rygor, the evil guy. So the witch comes to me at last. Witches are truly so clever. I had intended to formally invite you this evening's occasion, and yet here you are presenting yourself to me as if by divine orchestration. I've always known you were just like me, drawn to power. What is this place? She choked out. You must have been drawn to it. To its majestic power. Only an elite few chosen by the House of Elharion over the centuries have ever set foot in here. Only those who truly align with our masters have the honor of experiencing the seal of Elharion. So the seal is like a room. You'll be able to feel its power. The seal must feed on the powers of those who serve the great house. Don't worry, over time you'll get used to the feeling. It's an honorable sacrifice to make, and you shall be greatly rewarded. A doorway to power unimaginable is like the answer. The House of Elharion has controlled this portal for a millennia. It is what allows them to extend their influence across many different dimensions, realms, and worlds. The more lands the House of Elharion can obtain, the greater their power grows, the greater our influence grows. Shouldn't they call themselves like an empire then, rather than a dynasty? This portal can open a passageway to other worlds. Yes, and the beings who pledge their loyalty to the House of Elharion across these worlds have all given their power in honor of their masters. More and more do so in every moment. You mean they knowingly drain their own magic and give it to the House of Elharion? Some do. Many are simply blissfully unaware of their gifts and content to be given word work, shelter, and riches, a necessary sacrifice, as yours shall be. For millennia, the Elharian lineage has kept order. They know what people truly need, and this is to be content with their little lives. Every village, every servant, every being dedicates themselves to a much greater cause. This house has a great responsibility to ensure its power is strengthened and sustained. So Fern is like, was this all a trick? Did she betray me? Was this all a trick? And he like convinces himself that it was a brazen act of deceit. She had asked him to stay, asked him to be with her. It seemed so real and genuine, but a spy was trained in the mastery of manipulation, and she proved to be an expert. If you were trained for 300 years, then how were you outsmarted by a 32-year-old woman? So Rygor's like, this is my protege, which I don't know when she became his protege, but okay. His stomach churned. Leah was his protege. She had been part of this all along. It was their plan to trap him using her seduction. 300 years and he was to be undone by a witch 1/10 his age. Oh, so we're admitting it. That is weird. Fuck, he had truly fallen in love with this witch. How poetic. The spy fell in love with a spineless traitor. And she's like playing along because she's worried Rygor will kill her, and she's like, yeah, oh my god, that werewolf is like so pathetic. I like would never want to like have sex with him in the garden. Rygor's like, why don't you use your powers on the vampiress? During this, it's at this point that like she realizes that she can hear Fern, the werewolf shifter who she fucked, his thoughts finally. This only like clicked into place. It says whatever telepathic shields her thief had in place when they first met had dissolved when they made love. So I guess if you fuck somebody who you can't telepathize, then you can hear their thoughts. I don't know. She's hearing him think like, the witch, she lied, she manipulated me, I can't believe it. And she's also recognizing that there are other people here, including like not only the vampiress, but the vampiress's mate, and her mate is like, touch her and die. Sadly, I'm not sure his mate here will have much time left after you are finished with her, Rygor says. Let loose your flames and let's celebrate this long-awaited union, my pet. And so then she thinks back to how her grandma said, there are those who would take your power and turn it into blackness, my little Draga. The words of her grandmother from long ago roared through her mind as clear as if she spoke aloud. This is what she had been warned of. The potential for her magic to be used for both good and evil. The duality of the fire and the flame. It could burn to provide heat, warmth, nourishment, food. It could be used to destroy, obliterate, torture. She's like, oh, I'm just too tired. My magic is burnt out tonight. And he's like, if you lie to me, you will face the consequences. And then she telepathically hears Fern, her her werewolf boyfriend. Fuck, if I keep saying vampire, I'm gonna lose it. Fern, her dog man, is thinking in his head, take your hands off what's mine before I remove them. She's like, oh, I just need time to rest, and then I am eager to please you. I live to please you. I live only to please the great house. I want you to teach me and instruct me in your ways. Ah, there she is, my beautiful protege. There was the slimmest chance she might make it out of this dungeon alive, but would her thief ever forgive her? Ugh. So then she comes back after everybody's gone, having stolen the keys. What makes you think I would be inclined to trust you? You lied to me. You brought me here. Actually, no, she didn't bring you there. She left and then the guard showed up. I had nothing to do with that. How dare you pretend? I saw you were with him. I saw every look his way. You manipulated me from the start with your bargaining. It takes one to know one, little girl, and I should have known your specialty was deceit the second it paraded itself under my nose. Wow, you are at every turn terrible at your job. So then it says that she needs to get the magic out of the chains holding him, and so she like uses her flames, and it says incinerating the magic link by link, but I'm not sure if that means like the chains themselves are made of magic or if they're like imbued with magic and she has to burn it out of them so that he can break it. I don't know. I have no idea. The heavy chains fell to the stone floor. Oh, well, I guess that means that maybe they were imbued? I don't know. She's like, I understand if you want to seek your vengeance on me, just allow me to free the others while I still have time. And in his head, he's thinking, she is yours, protect her with your life, to himself, which is weird. And she hears this and her eyes snap up to meet his, and he's like, oh, did she hear my thoughts? So then she gets to work trying to free the other people, and then while they're doing this, a sea of red uniforms enters the room, but they're free, so they're like fighting it off. And then it says that blinding pain seared through his skull. Fern dropped to his knees, clutching at his head in agony. The vampire and shifter fell to the ground alongside him in turn. The three trapped in place, unable to escape Rygor. They were too late. And I'm like, wait, so does that mean Rygor has an effect particularly on vampires and werewolf shifters? Is that it? And like, is that why he's captain of the guard? I don't know. And in his head, as he's, being incapacitated by Rygor. I'm so sorry, little dragon. I should have been able to protect you. I should have told you I forgave you. I wanted to stay by your side forever if you would have allowed me. You just met her. I don't think she even knows your name. Rygor's blood red coat erupted in flame. He fought to shield himself using his magic. With each searing shot, Leah stepped forward, screaming a guttural roar. So she's attacking Rygor, and Fern is like, you don't want to kill him. I know your heart. You are kind and courageous and powerful. You know her. You've known her for like a day. You guys had sex once. You don't know each other. Just because you like put it in? Did you like put it in and like you just like a USB, you uploaded all of this information off of her onto your drive? Is that it? Is that how sex works in this world? Please come back to me, little dragon. And she's like so locked in on hurting this guy that she's starting to like lose herself. So then he like snaps her out of this and she stabs Rygor in the stomach. You most likely won't die before someone finds you, but you can suffer a fraction of what you have inflicted on others. You and your masters took my life and my power from me, drained me every day. Now you will know to fear me, for I will torch you all. Rygor screamed in agony as the dagger burned. They need to get out of there, so he tells the other supernatural beings there, you guys need to get out through the walled garden, jump the fence, and scurry on off into the woods. Was his little dragon still in there, or had he lost her entirely to the flames? And then she collapsed. The surge of otherworldly magic she tapped into had surely ripped her apart. He tried to pick her up, but his injuries prevented him from moving freely. So he's hurt, she's hurt, everybody's hurting. And the other werewolf shifter like puts her on his back, jumps over the fence. Hold tight, little dragon. So then they escaped. They're out in the forest. They reached the first clearing and saw two bodies bent over something on the ground. The shifter and the witch. He cradled the head of the vampiress, stroking her matted hair and murmuring, The witch was casting healing spells.
The witch was watching a mirror, and she was singing with a stolen set of pipes
along her broken, frail body. So I just want to remind you that we have 10 minutes left in this book at my reading speed. We don't know any of these people's names. Next chapter, Leah floated in and out of consciousness for several days. They traveled an enormous distance. How enormous? I don't know. What direction? I don't know. To where? I don't know. What's the plan? I don't know. Stopping for no more than a few hours rest at a time, the mysterious white wolf carried her gently the entire way. You came back to me. I missed you, little dragon, said Fern. Where are we? On the outskirts of our lands. We are safe here. We crossed the borders earlier today. As long as we remain within this realm, we are protected. So does that mean there's an alliance between the vampires and the werewolves and the witches? Or I don't know. I would have burned the world to get to you, to keep you safe. If they touch you again, they'll die. This is fine when we do it in a fantasy book where we have cultivated both the characters on their own and the relationship, but not in this book where we have done insta-love with cardboard cutouts. So the vampiress and the witch are talking to a third woman, and she realizes, oh shit, that is the stable master. And she's like, you're a shifter? You've been a shifter this whole time? She says, that's right. It's been my duty to operate as a spy within the castle for over 200 years. And Leah's like, how? And she's like, perhaps a story for another time. No, it was a story for this time because it's very relevant to everything we just did. Unlike the sex scene. So we're finally giving names at the end of the book. And it turns out that Malinkia, the vampiress who was, very brutally tortured, her mate, the werewolf shifter, made the difficult decision to leave once they reached the safety of the border. He couldn't remain near her knowing the suffering she had endured. He blames himself. Their time in the dungeon, it broke them in different ways. But she's his mate. How could he leave her? Enough questions. Here, eat. What do you mean enough questions? There has not been enough questions. That was the first time we're asking questions. There haven't been enough answers, let alone questions. Oh my god. So the stable hand finally gives her name. Her name is Thena. And she's like, Fern is gonna start growling again, your boyfriend. And Leah's like, oh, that's his name. Because she didn't know that dude who she's fucked name until right now at the end of the book. So they go on a walk and she's like, oh, so your name's Fern. That suits you. Better than calling you my thief for the next 100 years. Still italicized, by the way. She wants to stay with me for 100 years? I'll follow her to the ends of this world for eternity. Don't you have, loyalties that you've had for, 300 years to your werewolf shifting pack, clan, royalty, something? She tells him, oh, I'm a telepath, by the way. I can hear your thoughts. And he's like thinking to her, you'll not be leaving my bed for a month, more like a year. I have questions. Do you sleep in a bed? Is it a dog bed? Do you sleep inside? Is it a dog house? Is it a people house? This telepathy thing is going to get me into all sorts of strife, I can already tell. You'll know exactly every time I look at you, exactly how stimulating it is for me. Well, I can tell you that taking time for healing or not, there's more than just my usual fire going on for me right now. Tell me how I can help with that, little dragon. Touch me, Fern, please. His fingers stroked at her sex, gentle and sensual, with his thumb circling her clit, fingers spreading her. So beautiful. I want you inside of me. And he's like, all day and all night long. You are ambitious, but I think you're lying. I love you, little dragon. Love? You guys met like 3 days ago. You just found out his name. Stay with me forever. You are mine and I am yours. I'll always stay. Yes, more, please, Fern. My name on your lips is addictive, little dragon. Leah's climax barreled through her. His follows straight after with a shuddering groan, and she's like, this is my mate. I love you, Fern. Leah pulled him towards her, kissing him deeply. He engulfed them both, melting away all that had separated them, forging their bond, sealing their souls into one. Mated. The end. At the end it says, I hope you loved Leah and Fern's romance. I don't really even think this is a romance. Like, I just feel like it's like two people who had sex once and are now obsessed with each other. If you want to peek into a little more of their story, including seeing Leah become an elite supernatural spy alongside Ferd, you'll meet them again in book 2 of the Nocturnal Heart series, In Darkness Waits Desire. So this isn't something that I would continue with. I gave this a 2 because I'm nicer to novellas, and I like the idea of, like, first of all, I really do like Fire Witch. Like, that's great. That works for me. I think the telepathy thing was a little random. And I think that it was just there for convenience. It was really just there to be like, hey, by the way, she's going to hear him talk sexy things in his head about her. And it wasn't used for any practical purpose in any way that made sense. But the Fire Witch thing I think is a delight. However, I would like to see more in like more of like a cozy setting. I did like the idea of the seal, this thing that this, you know, like empire is using to siphon power out of like common people to power a portal into other worlds where they are doing like empire shit. Cool. But I never saw the imperialists. Is there a big group of them? What are they like? You know, how old are they? What are they typically doing day to day? How is the seal not siphoning their own power? That kind of thing. How are they using it, but it's not using them? You know what I mean? I also like, just in general, the idea of using vampires and werewolves in high fantasy rather than like urban paranormal fantasy, because normally when you see vampires and werewolves, it's like vampire and werewolves clashing in a city setting where a woman is solving the murder and it's probably a werewolf who has gone rogue. I like seeing them in high fantasy settings where there's like different types of magical users and there's like a castle. It's cool. I like it. But other than that, this really didn't do much of anything. The fact that we had 3 separate sex scenes in this novella but basic questions aren't answered was really disappointing, because it just seemed like we were prioritizing that. And then on top of that, again, the sex scenes were like really cringy in her dialogue. His dialogue, whatever. It was just, you know, the typical fantasy man dialogue, but her dialogue was like the, oh, please, like, ugh, I don't like it. It's just weird. However, I will say that at least it's really nice to see a 30-year-old woman as a main character who has had sexual partners before. But then again, her life does not make much sense to me. Her grandma got brought up twice. Her parents got brought up once. I don't know anything about her. I don't know how it's possible that she doesn't have friends and how these people don't unionize. I don't know how she wasn't resentful that she worked in this castle and she was literally never going to be free. What aspirations did she have for herself outside of this? Then suddenly she meets this guy and she's like, I want to be with him forever. What? What do you mean? Also, how the fuck did Rygor and Fern know each other? How? This was not for me. It might be for you if you're looking for something that you don't want to answer a lot of questions. You just want to experience a Fire Witch and a werewolf shifter, then it might be for you. Although I just told you literally everything what happened that happened, so I'm not really sure there's anything left. But if you want to, you can try it out. It is on Kindle Unlimited. It is the first in a series. And like, again, Natalie liked it, so my tastes and hers are different. Your tastes and mine might be different, but this was a 2 for me, more like a 1.75. I gave it a 2 on Goodreads. So that's what I have to say about Sweet Inferno. I'm not going to continue the series. I did not like this first installment, and the only reason it didn't get a lower rating is because I'm being being nice because it was a novella. If it was a full-length novel, I would have had more reasons to be annoyed if it was all like this, with like all this time to world build and not taking it. And I just have to assume that that's what's going to happen in the next book, so I'm not going to waste my time. But if you want to, you do you. Let me know if you've read this. Let me know if you know of any books that have like similar themes and ideas but did a little better. And also please let me know your favorite novella down below. Okay? Thanks so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.
And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astrid P, Brittany Bobitney, Cami, Choco's Trash for Japanese Mysteries and Thrillers, Chris the Horror Therapist, Dalton Smith, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, GalaxyBot, Janaya, Jack, Jess, John E, Julie D, Kelly No K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Kiara, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Grand Poobah of the Church of Josh. Y'all are killing me. Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Little Crow, Max B, Mommy Zombie, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Rachel C, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Sad Witch Bree, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph, 2 Orbit, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, and Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Slush Marxist patrons, and those are Alejandra, Althea, Amanda, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe, Bookish Brainrot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Chris, CJ, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle M, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Diet Goth, Dilf Enthusiast, those being right next to each other is hilarious, Dorian, Dorothea, E.T. Cosgrove Wrights, Ebby, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Emma O.A, Aaron, Ezra Moon, Fiona, Gadarn, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Haley G, Ilianaka, J.M. Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Gender Queer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jillian R, Jojo Bookish, Kat H, Catherine, Katie, Katie L, Kaylee C, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura Garcia, Lauren, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Man Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Malara, Mentally Unwell, May, Molly, James, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Rivi, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sikoria, Sadie, Saint Bringer, Sakia Lume, Samantha O, Sammy C, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Super Evil Sam, that's a good one, T Delegati, Tay, Talia, 3 Old Dogs, Tiana, Trash Can Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend and for being willing to listen to 2.5 hours of me talking. Oh my god, if you're still here, I'm shocked. Anyway, thank you so much.